Against the Bengals in Week 15, Will Levis added 4 turnovers to his league co-leading total of 17 this season before being benched in the third quarter. The Tennessee Titans quarterback had a horrible 2.5 quarters in this one, stacked on top of a very bad 4 quarters against the worst defense in the league last week when they hosted Jacksonville. After returning from injury earlier this season, Levis had a November to remember, stacking 4 decent to very good games in a row. It was the foundation upon which he was poised to finish the year strong, facing a gauntlet of bad defenses on his way to stacking 9 consecutive promising games in a row. That kind of consistency would have been enough to earn him a look again in 2025, but he blew it. It's harsh, but true. There's really no other way to look at how he performed against the Bengals and the Jaguars. He's put himself too far behind the 8 ball this season to make up enough ground in his final 3 games. Barring a world-shattering, record-breaking 3-game stretch that's certainly not coming, nobody's going to buy what he's selling the rest of the year. It's over. In fact, it may literally already be over. Titans head coach Brian Callahan didn't make any definitive statements about who would be his starting quarterback going forward after the game, but no statement is as good as any statement he could have made. Whether he plays again or not, they're done with him. And so the Titans will be in the market for a new quarterback heading into 2025. Their options, in case you're new to this topic, are rather limited. So let's take this moment to get introduced to 6 potential quarterback solutions for the Titans next year. This video is brought to you by Lipscomb Sports Analytics, where data meets the game. Get off the sidelines and get into the action with Lipscomb University's Sports Analytics program, where you'll learn to make the calls that count, analyze, strategize, revolutionize, turn your passion into a profession. Lipscomb University's Sports Analytics program, it's turning sports fans into a data-driven decision maker in the exciting world of professional athletics. Game-changing insights, career-defining skills. Check out Lipscomb Sports Analytics, our sponsor on today's video. Sam Darnold is locked in as the belle of the 2025 free agency ball at quarterback. The year he's had in Minnesota, his first with the team, has been legit. Through week 15, he's 3rd in the league in passer rating. He's 6th in total yards, 7th in completion percentage, and 11th in EPA per dropback. He has a 28-10 touchdown to interception ratio. It's been a real delight to see him finally emerge as the seriously talented passer he is. But there is still no getting rid of the bozo in him. Darnold will forever and always be looking to make a questionably aggressive decision on the football field, no matter how well he's playing. It's in his DNA, and this, paired with the fact that he's only done it in 1 year with a pretty good situation around him, has plenty of people dubious over signing him long-term, especially if his new situation looks worse, like it would in Tennessee. The ultimate verdict on Darnold will depend on the price. He's far and away the best option on the free agent market, but nobody wants to be the sucker who spends way too much on a long-term contract for the one-season wonder. Darnold is currently on a 1-year, $10 million contract with Minnesota, who is sure to be among the teams interested in signing him back in the spring. How steep the bids are will dictate how smart an option he would be for the Titans. Jameis Winston, believe it or not, is the 2nd best quarterback option on the free agent market this year. The drop-off from Darnold is steep, as nobody really considers Winston to be anything more than a nice bridge quarterback. Winston is going to produce for you. There's no doubt about that. The problem, of course, is that his production does not discriminate. He regularly produces for both teams in the game. In just 6 games started for the Browns this year, he currently has 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, averaging 329 yards a game, and he's been a real revelation for most of the Browns' skill players, statistically and in fantasy. But he's simply too frenetic and inconsistent a player to be more than a nice bridge. But is it crazy to think a high-end bridge quarterback is the worst thing in the world for a team like Tennessee right now? You don't want a guy you'll fall in love with again, like Tannehill, but somebody who can get you and your young players through the storm to the opportunity to take your shot on a guy you truly believe in, somebody your coaching staff can use to help build up team culture and identity, somebody the front office can use as a placeholder to continue building up the rest of your roster around a rookie one day in the future. There's a reason why bridge quarterbacks make a lot of money in this league. They're really useful players. Winston is currently on a 1-year, $4 million contract in Cleveland. He'll hit the market and likely be attainable for a bit more than that in 2025 and possibly beyond. With the top 4 quarterbacks in the 2025 NFL draft, we'll just get a brief introduction to them today. More deep dives on their profiles will come in hot and heavy from me and others on A2Zsports.com in the coming weeks and months. First up, the consensus big board's number 1 overall pick, Shedeur Sanders. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has a predetermined opinion of Shedeur Sanders. Most formed their takes in 2023 when the Coach Prime media whirlwind began in Colorado. He and his Hall of Famer father are very, very polarizing figures. From a pure football player standpoint, Sanders' greatest crime is not being elite at anything. He doesn't have the biggest arm you've ever seen. He's not the fastest or the biggest, and he's not a well-oiled mental machine in the pocket that we've seen other college quarterbacks enter the draft as. In our microwave superlative culture, if somebody isn't a freak in some regard, we lose interest. But Sanders might be a B plus across the board. In the same way, he's not elite at anything. He's really not bad at anything either. In 3 college seasons, he has a touchdown to interception ratio around 5-1, and his completion percentage hovers around 70%. He has a high floor, in my opinion. The only question is what kind of ceiling he could have. But could the Titans even be in range for him? It seems unlikely right now. If it's going to take the first or second overall pick to land him, the Titans have a real uphill climb. But you never know. A couple surprise upsets from teams ahead of them in the order or a blockbuster trade could change the math on Sanders potentially landing in Nashville. The 3rd overall pick, according to the consensus mock draft board, is Miami's Cam Ward. Ward just participated in the Heisman festivities in New York as one of the 2024 finalists. Ward scares me to death. His highlight reel is more than enough to sell you on him being a total superstar. He makes a couple plays each game that you just don't see others making on Saturdays. But if you view his low light tape, you're compelled to run screaming. If you sit long enough watching any given Miami game this year, you are sure to see a play that leaves you with a dozen questions. Why? How? Why? It's hard not to see the upside and downside similarities between Ward and Will Levis if you're a Titans fan. And I'd imagine Titans executives will feel that way too. It's not a direct comparison by any means, but the I can get away with anything from anywhere because I am Superman effect is very real for both of these players on tape. Where he ends up being drafted is still a relative question mark, perhaps as high as 2nd overall or as low as a mid-first rounder. Could the Titans make him their guy in 2025? Possibly, but right now I would advise strongly against it. We can keep this next one short and sweet. Jalen Milroe is the 21st overall pick on the consensus mock draft board as of today, but if you watched the final couple games of Alabama's season, you probably feel like that's likely to change before April, and I'd say you're almost certainly right. Milroe is an undeniably sexy athlete just in terms of his profile. 6'1", 225 pounds, reportedly going to run around 4.3 in his 40-yard dash in the spring. God just is not making many dudes like that. That athleticism will attract NFL evaluators, even as they watch some truly horrendous stretches of actual quarterbacking from him in 2024. As a processor, he is a significant project. Frankly, I think he'd do really well to return to school purely from a developmental standpoint, but I doubt he would rather compete in the 2026 pool of quarterbacks than in this one. So we'll have to see which GM takes a swing on a guy you could be forgiven for seeing some Jalen Hurts in his game. Okay, a quick update before we get to this next guy, because some news broke after I initially recorded the video. On Monday morning, Pete Thamel reported that Drew Allar has told Penn State he intends on returning to school in 2025. His promising young backup Beau Pribula announced he would be entering the transfer portal on Sunday and would not be waiting until after the college football playoff to do so. Now, there's always a chance this changes with a big showing from Allar in the playoff. If he's suddenly poised to be a lock top 15 pick, that certainly changes the financial math for him at the very least. But if he does end up back at Penn State in 2025, it has massive draft ramifications for the next 2 cycles. Selfishly, it really stinks for the 2025 class. He was one of the only truly intriguing quarterback options in an otherwise subpar class. It makes a thin group a whole lot thinner. Unselfishly, it likely is going to be a move that does Allar some good if he's suddenly poised to take the next step with another year of development in school, although Penn State not exactly known for their ability to develop quarterbacks. He could solidify himself as a top 10 or even a top 5 pick in the 2026 class when he does come out. So keep that in mind when I am back to talking about him in the initial recording here. It all still applies. The evaluation is still real, but if he doesn't come out, it changes the math of the Titans. Okay, now back to the video. The idea of Drew Allar, the 41st pick on the consensus big board, intrigues me deeply. As I watched him throughout the back half of the 2024 Penn State season, I grew more and more fond of the tools we are working with here. Allar is my pick for the quarterback who's going to rise up draft boards the furthest between now and April. Currently sitting as an early day 2 pick, I would bet significant money he ends up inside the top 20 picks when it's all said and done. He's exactly the kind of guy that people haven't paid a ton of attention to this year, and then upon review in the heat of draft season, his stock catches fire. His 21-7 touchdown to interception ratio, 70% completion percentage, and 109.5 passer rating are good, but they don't jump off the page. When you dig into some of his advanced metrics, though, or just turn on the tape, you see an NFL quarterback. His pressure to sack rate of 10.6% is very healthy, and on film, his big arm and ability to make every throw to every part of the field really pops out at you. You could see his stock rise in a hurry, by the way, as he's the only quarterback in this group playing in the college football playoff. Remember what CJ Stroud's big playoff performance did for his narrative that draft cycle? Something similar could befall Allar, just with one big game on the national stage. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Titans picking in the 5 to 7 range, with people seriously discussing how in on Allar they are in April. Wherever the Titans end up going, it's almost certainly away from the Levis experiment, and their decision is sure to be contentious amongst fans because there are no perfect answers. I'm Easton Freeze for A to Z Sports Nashville.